Alrighty, so just to be able to honor everyone's time, we are going to get started right away at 2 o'clock on the dot. So 2 p.m. Eastern, or sorry, 2 p.m. Central Standard Time. So if you, that's it, we're going to get started. Alrighty, so hello everybody. Welcome to CodeMonkey's first webinar for the back to school season on how to set up and manage your classrooms. The CodeMonkey team wants to personally thank you for joining us for today's webinar. We know that time seems like it has been turned upside down. So our goal for today is to make sure that you are getting exactly what you need out of today's webinar to help prepare you to teach CodeMonkey with your students. Oops. So be sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram at CodeMonkeySTU during today's webinar, and also tweet at us using the hashtag CodeMonkeyWebinar. We'll do our best to answer any live tweets during our webinar today, and my team is also here to answer any questions that you may have, and you'll meet them in just a few moments. So please chat with us along the side if you have any questions, or ask them in the Q&A box. If we do not answer your questions immediately during the session of today's webinar, we will try to get to them today during our Q&A. And if we don't get to them during the Q&A, we'll be sure to follow up with you after today's webinar. Following today's webinar, a survey will pop up, and once you take the survey, a professional development certificate will be emailed to you directly following. If you don't receive that, you can email us and we'll follow up with you as well. So let's get ready to write code, catch bananas, and save the world. Before we introduce ourselves, I do want to go ahead and just take a poll for you for today. I just kind of want to just learn a little bit about who you are. So I'm just going to give everyone just a few moments to take this poll, and then it just says, you know, like I mentioned, we just want to learn as much about you today as we can to help guide you through this back to school new norm that we live in. And if you don't find your role there, just go ahead and select one that is a best fit for you. All right, I'll give everyone just about 10 more seconds. We'll close that poll up and we'll get moving. And if you don't see the poll, it will just be no need to worry. All righty, I'm gonna go ahead and close the poll. And then I just always like to share the results. So I'm hoping that you can see these with us. How familiar are you as a coder? It seems like the general consensus is that most of you are familiar with coding, but still learning. And then majority of you are going to be in the beginner side, which is perfectly great. Have you used CodeMonkey before? Majority of you have actually not used CodeMonkey before, so that's good for us to know as well. And then what is your role? So it seems like the majority of people are elementary teachers or computer technology teachers. So we're going to go ahead now and get started with today's webinar. All right, so we like to always start off with just talking about what is CodeMonkey. So CodeMonkey is a learning program for kids that provides online engaging courses for students to learn how to code. It's made with schools and teachers in mind. We are standards aligned. We do have a K-8 coding curriculum, and there is no prior experience needed to begin teaching with CodeMonkey. And now we're just going to play the CodeMonkey Professional Development Series. We envision a global playful learning experience where the next generations of coders are born and raised. We aim to create an engaging platform where programming knowledge is acquired alongside 21st century skills through collaboratively playing and solving puzzles, inventing, creating, and sharing. Why do we need to use CodeMonkey for computational thinking? Coding is for everyone and concepts that everyone should know. We are one of the best gamified platforms for teaching coding and computational thinking. It is easy for both students and teachers alike. What role does the teacher play in the CodeMonkey platform? The teacher facilitates the class, checks for student understanding, and fosters the ability for students to dive deeper into the various coding concepts. CodeMonkey also has automated feedback loops with a rating scale to rate student solutions. A 3-star means that the student was able to solve the challenge with the shortest, most concise solution. A 2-star means that the student was able to take what they learned and apply it to the challenge. A 1-star means that the student was able to collect the bananas. All right, so we'll dive a little bit deeper into those concepts as we progress through today's webinar. And like I mentioned, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to ask them. We want to value your time as much as we can during this time. So now we're going to go ahead and meet the team so you can see exactly who it is that you're meeting today. So first, I want to start off by introducing myself. My name is Lena Saleh, and I am the Professional Development Manager here at CodeMonkey. I've been with CodeMonkey for a few years now. And prior to that, I taught in the classroom. I taught at the elementary level and computer technology, as well as wrote curriculum for our district. And I did that for a little over 10 years. And now I also organize some meetups here in Austin for edtech companies and teachers to meet together and kind of marry the partnership between them. So now I'd like for you, if you have any questions, actually, you can always email me here at lena.s@codemonkey.com, or you can always tweet at me at lena@codemonkey, and I'm happy to answer those questions along the way. Now I'd like for you to meet my team.
Hi, everybody. I'm Talia Arieli. I'm the head of customer success at CodeMonkey. I'm happy to be here with you, and thank you for joining our webinar. And I'll be taking your questions throughout the webinar, so I hope you enjoy.
Hi, everybody. My name is Molly. I am the Director of Sales here at CodeMonkey, and I'm somewhat new to the company. Just started here this past January, but I will be helping out Talia and Lena as well with answering questions. So again, thank you for joining us today.
Awesome. Thank you, ladies, so much. And just so you guys know, Talia is joining us from Israel, so she's up a little bit later than normal. So thank you for taking that time with us today. Okay, so what are we going to cover in today's webinar objectives? Today we are going to get familiar with the teacher's homepage. We're going to explore your CodeMonkey classroom as well as the students' access, how to monitor students' progress and what that will look like. We'll also discuss what a self-paced lesson looks like versus a structured lesson for that remote learning experience, and then we'll talk about next steps, and then we'll leave some time definitely for some Q&A. We also pulled some of your questions from your webinar registration that we're going to also answer here at the end. But like I said, feel free to answer any of those questions along the way. In the chat box, actually right now, if you wouldn't mind, just go ahead and letting us know if you are going back to school remote, if you're going back to school student facing, or if you're doing a mixture of the both, hybrid. I've been talking to a lot of teachers that are doing all three. So kind of however you're going back to school, it just kind of lets us know how to guide today's discussion a little bit more. All right, and while you guys are taking the time to do that, we're gonna go ahead and get into the teacher's homepage. I've actually already logged in under myself. If you are not sure how to do that, you can log in using a single sign-on. And so I used my Google sign-on today to just go ahead and log in. I personally like to use Google. I like for everything to be synchronous so that I don't have to remember 9,000 passwords. I'm sure you might be the same way as well. So once you do that, it's fairly easy to just get logged in every single time. I did skip that step just in the interest of time, but if you have questions with that, we do have some really great help articles to help you along the way. As soon as I log in here to the teacher homepage, what you'll see right away is it pops us out into, or pops us right onto the My Classrooms page. The My Classrooms page, oh good, lots of people are, some are doing 100% virtual. It will be interesting to see how this year kind of progresses as well. But once you're into the My Classrooms page, this is where you'll manage your classrooms and students' accounts. And we'll get back to that a little bit later as we dive in deeper. On the upper right-hand corner of the screen is where you will see, basically, if you think about it, it's a menu bar. In the upper right-hand corner is where you can access the ability to change our languages. You will also see information about your account is located here. Our privacy policy, we know that privacy is a really big concern. Just so everybody knows, we are COPA certified, and we are in association with KidSafe. So if anyone has any questions about privacy policy, we're happy to send that information along as well. Our help center is located here, and our help center are articles related to just anything that you might want to know, CodeMonkey related concepts, courses. There's a lot of wealth of information of resources that we've added there as well. And then we have our blog. If you're not following along on our blog, we have lots of guest bloggers, and we just try to talk about things that are relevant to you as a teacher. And you can also contact us here. Pretty self-explanatory there. On the left-hand side, what we see here is the My Classrooms page, which is where we're on right now, which is why it's highlighted in green. The courses, and this is where you will be able to access and complete the courses included in your subscription. So this is also what your students will see when they log in. So this is the main page that they'll actually be able to see. And I'm just gonna briefly kind of cover our courses that we have here on our page, just to kind of talk about what the courses are. And if you're not sure about how the courses work, we do have the ability to go ahead and customize some scope and sequences for you for just some suggestions. But I would always check out our course page here, which I'm about to show you. Okay, so here are our CodeMonkey courses. I'm just going to give you a brief rundown of them, and then I'll show you where they're located. So right away, starting in kindergarten, we do, like I mentioned before, span K through 8. We actually go into the higher range. We do actually have a lot of high schoolers actually using some of our courses in their, intro to computer science courses and things like that. So it actually does run the gamut of that. We like to think about coding as a language. So sometimes you may start in different places, no matter what grade level you are. You might start, if I start learning Spanish and my students start learning Spanish, we're really going to start learning in the same place. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go through the courses. So CodeMonkey Junior is our younger student block-based course. It is really about computational thinking, directionality. It teaches the basics of sequencing and loops. And if you're interested in learning more about our courses, we do have a webinar next week that's going to dive deeper into all of those courses and exactly what they look like. Then we have our Beaver Achiever course that's really geared for our first and second graders. It is a block-based course as well, but it does dive into the loops, conditionals, and then if and else statements. Then we have our coding adventure, which we start text-based coding really early, which is in 3rd grade. Some students will even start it younger if they've been coding for a really long time in the block-based. So we use Coffeescript, and Coffeescript is a shorter version of JavaScript and Python. It's really the meat and potatoes of the language. It doesn't have a lot of syntax. It's really going to be tying kids down. It's hard for them to remember where a comma goes or a curly bracket. So we really wanted to make the students have the skill set to really progress to those harder languages as they move through. Then we have a math course, which is a supplemental. It works through angles, distances, and multiplication. So they're working with math-focused concepts while coding. So those are really great to have as well. And then we also have a game builder course, and that really is teaching the game mechanics in order for the students to then build and design their own games to share out. And then one of our newer courses, in addition to the Beaver Achiever, is our Banana Tales, and that is a Python course. It is set up similar to our Coding Adventure course. It does work through the coding concepts. And then our Coding Chatbox course, where students code in Python to build an interactive chatbot. So how you will see that is all of the courses are located here. All the courses that are available in your subscription will be available for you. If you see anything that has a lock on it, it just means that it's not part of your subscription. And just a reminder, and then down here at the bottom, sorry, I forgot to mention this, down here at the bottom in our creativity section is where the students can actually build and create their own challenges. So that's for extra enrichment, extra practice, which we'll talk about a little bit at the end, but we'll dive deeper into that next week actually. So you can complete any of the courses, like I mentioned, that your students have access to, and what you'll do is you'll actually just click on them. As students, they will not be able to, I'll show you what they won't be able to do, but everyone will start out the same. So you will just, mine says redo course. So I'll just click on it and yours will say start coding. So when you click on the course itself, you can begin playing the course, and then you'll kind of go through there. You'll progress through the challenges the same as your students. Just something to note, the students don't have the ability to skip around throughout the courses. It is designed for them to learn linearly through the coding concepts. So just kind of keep that in mind. As a teacher, you are able to move around and navigate the challenges because we want you to have more of a flexibility than to be tied down and have to do the whole coding course. We want you to have those tools in your tool set to kind of move through there, okay? So that's how you would begin any of the coding courses. Like I mentioned in the Tour de Courses, we will, Tour de France, but Tour de Courses, we will dive deeper into what each one of those look like. So I would recommend that as well. Next is on the left-hand side is our teacher resources. Under the teacher resources, we have our Teaching with Coding Adventure, and that's where you'll be able to access our teaching, where it will take an in-depth look of the coding concepts that are covered in Coding Adventure Part 1. You can also have access to all of our webinars, current and past webinars that are coming up, where you can register and find all of those things which you were probably directed to for today's webinar. Then underneath here is all of our fully guided lesson plans. They are standards aligned with all of them. They are PDF versions of them. And then briefly, I'll just mention that, well, I'll go back to the lesson plans as well, but that's where all the lesson plans are located. And then here you'll have your how-to guide. So these are short video tutorials. We also have the access to the Help Center, which you notice in the up here in the upper right-hand corner. The Beginner's Guide to CodeMonkey is just as a PDF version of everything, kind of all located in one location. Getting started videos, and then we have just some short tutorials on things like how to upgrade your subscription, archiving, how to access certain challenges. They're really great and informational, and in the honor of time, short for you as well. And then also I like to mention, we do have notes for the hour of code. We also have these classroom resources, which do have certificates for all of our courses. There's also a media kit, so if you want the cute images that we have as well, classroom posters, and then we do have some coloring pages, which have been really good for like after school clubs and things like that, or just things to fill the students' time with. And then newest to here is the solutions. So this is where you can access all of the solutions. It's kind of like a cheat sheet for you for all of the courses that we offer. You can have the solution for everything. So those are there for you. Those are the 3-star solutions for every single course that we offer. And then moving right along on the left-hand side is the My Creations. The My Creations are if you use the challenge builder or the game builder to create your own challenges, this is where your specific challenges will be located, and the students will see this as well. They'll see the courses, the My Creations, and the Discover page. So under the My Creations, you'll see here are all of the basically challenges that I've created within the lifetime of my account. They're all located here. They're located with games and challenges. So those are just my personal creations that I've created. Then over here we have the Discover page, and the Discover page is where students and teachers can publish publicly. And when you publish a challenge publicly, there are the community guidelines. So we make sure that there's no student information, that everything is very safe. If we ever have questions about, something questionable, like a student adding a word that we might not think, that could kind of cross the line, we definitely don't approve them. So I'll just let you know that as well. So all of the students that have published those are there. I do like to mention this. This is just something for teachers to know, that basically when the students do publish to the Discover, it makes a copy of their challenge so they can't go back through and try to change it. You can also remix, once you click on the game itself, you can also remix those games as well. And so it will also let you know that the students have remixed those games. So just some little tidbits to kind of keep in mind as you're going through. Then moving on, we do have the Help Center is also located here. And I'll just briefly just talk about that. So we do have our Getting Started for Teachers, Classroom Dashboard, just really any questions that you would like to have. Most of them have videos attached or just really descriptive for questions that you may have. So we always recommend checking that out first. Okay, so now we are going to move on. If you have any questions about that part, you can go ahead and let me know. So we just talked about how you get to log in. And then now we're going to actually go into the CodeMonkey classroom itself and talk about students access. So now we're going to do the steps to create a classroom, how to set up the student account. continuing with the previous CodeMonkey classroom, and then adding co-teacher. So we're going to kind of walk through all of this part as far as setup goes. So the first steps for setting up your new subscription, whether you have a trial or a purchased trial that you've purchased or a purchased subscription, how you're going to go about this is you're going to be populated right, you'll be put right into the My Classrooms page. And on the My Classrooms page, what you'll do is you'll create a classroom. So when you click here on the classroom, you can do two things. So you can create a new classroom and add the name of the classroom which you would like to name it, and just make sure you select the appropriate subscription. Or new to us is you can import from Google Classroom. So when you connect to the Google Classroom, it will go ahead and pull your students from the Google Classroom right into CodeMonkey here, into the CodeMonkey classroom. So you don't have to do giving them a class code or any of that kind of thing. So it just creates that seamless transition for students to do that. So I actually want to show you that itself. So I'm going to share with you another screen so I can show you what that will look like when you do the, when you do create with a Google Classroom, because I know that's a big question right now, especially with the learning management. So when I create a classroom here, I can just import from Google, and the classroom that I have here is named Monday. I make sure I have it attached to the correct subscription, and then I create my classroom. Some things to note here is that you can't actually edit the students' names once they're populated, but everything is completely COPA compliant. And what you'll see is that I don't have a class code that's here because it's already made. I don't need to share a class code or create anything with them as well. Okay. So that is that part of the classroom, creating a classroom. And so when I click onto it, all those students will be populated, which we'll show you here in just a moment. Okay. So now that we've taken a look at importing the Google Classroom, which is one of my favorite things to do, make my life a little bit easier. We can also, so I've created that. So let's create our classroom. So I'll just name it webinar for today. And I make sure I attach it to my correct subscription. And then when I create the classroom, it will populate here. You see, I have a lot of classrooms created. Right now, I don't have any students in my classroom. I do have a class code. I can see which subscription it's attached to. I can also edit this. I can also archive this, which just means it will no longer appear on my screen, but the data will still remain in the classroom. And then if I want to upgrade to a subscription is where I would do that as well. So now that we are, we've created our classroom, let's go ahead and look at what it looks like to create a student account, because that's what you all want to know is how do we even create our student accounts? So as we can see here, there are no students in my classroom. So I'm going to click create student account, and I can add a student here. So what I do is I add the student. I can share the class code if I want here. I can also do a bulk upload. So a bulk upload means that I have 50 students in my classroom and I want to upload the 50 students. There is a CSV file that it will give you as an example. And we just recommend anytime you're creating any type of student information is that you're just keeping it, with their first name and their last initial, and you're not doing anything as far as sharing extra information that doesn't need to be shared. They are really hyping up privacy right now. I've heard that from a lot of teachers that they've been asking a lot of questions about privacy and doing privacy checks. So I would just really recommend that you're making sure that you are doing your part to keep your students' information safe as well, because we do our part to not collect information. So we hope that you do the same. So then I can also create an account. So I can put a display name if I want, or I can just put, let's just say I create my student account here, and then I create my password, try to keep the password something that the students can remember. And then what I do is I click create. And once I do, it tells me that the user has been successfully created. And now they're going to be in my classroom. Now that I have a student in my classroom, I can do a couple of different things here. And what I can do is I can actually move, let's say this is an old classroom from another location. Oh, actually, let's talk about this. So you can print student login cards if you would like here. That's obviously more tactile for the students. I know we're really trying to eliminate the use of extra papers and different things like that. Or you can do a classroom direct login URL. And so what you do is you embed this in your web page, you click on it, the students will have a picture, and they'll just click on their picture and they'll add their password. And so that's just there. If the students are single sign-on users, however, if they are using a Google Classroom or even just a Google login, we would want to stay away from doing this direct login URL. That's just if they're not single sign-on associated. Okay, so we can also, so here what I can do is, let's say this is a really old classroom and I want to move them to another classroom. I can either archive this whole classroom all at once really quickly, or I can move them to a new classroom. You can also do the same here with each of the students. Once you archive a student, they will be removed from your classroom, but their data will remain. And you can also move them, like I mentioned, to another classroom. So they move, you know, different to another classroom. And so you just move them. And so they're still there, keeping all of their data. And then you can also delete a student. You can notice here that I can delete this student only because there is no student progress. So that's just something to keep in mind. Once a student has logged in and began, you can no longer remove them. So they do occupy a seat on that. Brooke, that's a great question. And I think a member of my team will actually answer that. And then I'll also answer that question at the end, because that's a really good question for us as well. Okay, so we have talked about the student list here, and I just want to mention that if you have a co-teacher in your classroom that you are wanting to, maybe your team teaching, you can actually add the teacher here and send them an invitation, and then they will have the ability to have the same level of access to that classroom as you do. All right. I'll go back to how to upgrade a subscription in just a minute, but let's talk about, now that we're in the student list, we've created a student, we're going to talk about how to assign courses, and then I'll go back to the progress and some of the pieces that you probably want to know most of all. So here in the courses tab, remember I'm in a classroom and now I'm on the courses tab for that specific classroom. I can go ahead and assign the courses. Any classroom that does any course that is not assigned to the classroom is going to be green, and anything that is already assigned is grayed out so that you know that it's there. So I can just quickly click on it and it'll say it's unassigned, and I can click on it again and assign. So it's fairly easy to assign and unassigned courses to your students. Something that I do want to note, we do get a lot of questions about this, so I'll just bring it up. I feel like now is a good time to bring it up. If you have all of the Coding Adventure courses assigned to your students, or all of the Banana Tails, or all of the Beaver Achiever, anything that has a succession of courses together, so like Coding Adventure, Beaver Achiever, Banana Tails, even if all of the courses are assigned, the students do still have to work linearly through those concepts, and they'll unlock as they go along. So I just would like to mention that as well. Okay, so now that we have assigned courses, and we talked about setting up a student account, and we've talked about adding teachers to the co-teachers, I want to talk about how to monitor student progress and our gradebook. We'll also talk about that as well. So monitoring student progress is obviously important. It's important for everyone to kind of know where their students are as well. So let me just go ahead and get into a classroom that has some student data in it. And we can talk about some different components that are going to be important to kind of investigate as we go along. So here I am in my student progress page. All of the courses have their own basically progress tables for the course. So let's just click on our Coding Adventure course. What we can see here is that I can sort the students. I can see how far the students have progressed here along the, right here on the left-hand side where the students' names are, where the student name list is. I can also sort by student progress. And so when I do that, I'm able to see, you know, the students at the top that have the most progress are going to be there, and then it's going to, you know, go down as it goes through. So we can see the ones with the least amount of progress are going to be at the bottom. Some also things to note here is in our Coding Adventure course, Beaver Achiever, Banana Tails, most of our courses, except for the game design course, all have 3-star solutions. So a 3-star solution is the shortest, most concise code. A 2-star means that the student took an extra step, something that what would have been there, and 1-star means that the student was able to collect that banana. But I like to say that they're on the struggle bus, probably didn't really understand the concept that was there, took a lot of extra steps that were not needed. So it creates really good conversational pieces. So what you can see here is that I sorted by my student progress, and I can see that in this specific challenge here, challenge 16, just so you know, all of these numbers along the top are the solutions as well. So you can access them on the teacher resource page, or you can do this specifically in the progress page. It does report live. So as the students are working, it is populating into the progress page here for you. But let's say I have a student who is what I like to call the struggle busser. I click on this star here. I'm able to see how many times this student attempted the challenge, and we can see that this student attempted this challenge 4 times. I'm going to click on it, and when I do, it gives me a real life animation. It gives me their exact solution and how they solved it. So I'm able to see it in real time, exactly how they solved it. And it also pulls up anonymously for some really good conversation for you to have as well. It's not like a writing sample where you pull up a writing sample, you cut off their name and you put it up there and everyone knows that person's writing. So this way it gives it a really anonymous, authentic conversation to have and learning to have with your students. Something else to kind of mention too is that your teacher solutions, when you pull them up, they actually won't say teacher solution across the top. So you can also share those too if you're trying to compare some different solutions. Something else to note here is that every single star that is reported back to here in this page, every single one of them contains a solution. All of them live here in this page, so you can always click on any of them and kind of see when they did that. If you're looking for something that's a little bit more robust, maybe you want to see a little bit more information, you can export that data to a CSV file and it will really break it down for you exactly how they did it. And the file can be quite large, so it does give some really detailed information there. For Coding Adventure, we do have a skill mode, so that's deeper dive into the coding concepts that are there. As you notice here, each of these, this has the concepts actually here in the gradebook, and that does match the courses themselves. So just something to note there too. And those solutions are there for you as well as the student solutions there. We can also limit the student progress. So I currently have them limited. I actually have some younger siblings and they're actually working in this page right now. So I have them limited because I'm really trying to keep track of what they're doing and where they are. So basically what that means when I've limited a student's progress, as you can see here, they are actually not able to progress beyond challenge number 20. So just to kind of keep that in mind, because you know what happens, they go through, they complete the challenges before you're ready for them to complete. And this is just a way for you to kind of keep everyone all together. If you want to unlock it, obviously it's up to your discretion. You are the teacher, you know what's best. So that's why we give you the flexibility to kind of have that as well. And now you see I've unlocked it. I just clicked on the limit progress. I clicked free play and I was able to unlock all of the challenges. We're going to talk about lesson modes in just a moment, but you can also limit the progress based on the last lesson that was taught. So there's also that a little bit more flexibility there as far as that goes. So I'm just going to go ahead and limit this back up here just so they don't progress beyond where I want them to go. I'll probably forget later. And then what I can also do in our Coding Adventure course is turn on or off super hints. So this is really good, especially in your remote learning environment, is that this will give students an extra set of hints. There's always hints within our platform, but this will give the students some extra hints, and I'll show you this in just a minute, but you can turn it on or turn it off here as well. Okay, so now let's go ahead, and we've talked about the progress tab and what each of the stars mean, how to limit. We talked about the solutions and what that looks like. Next, we're going to talk about the gradebook. So CodeMonkey does this really wonderful thing. And I know when I was teaching in the classroom, I always wanted to know that. Andrea, that's a really great question. I'm actually going to answer that in just a second. So here in the gradebook, it's going to, you have a couple of different choices here. This is automatically graded for you, so it always makes your life a little bit easier. You can change it from letters, numbers, and percentages. And then you can also calculate it between the different coding concepts. You have there is a grade book for every single course within your subscription that you have available to you. You can also export that as a CSV file. And that's just something to know. At the bottom here of the page, it will tell you how far the students have progressed through the challenges. average score on assessment. So in the Coding Adventure course itself, there are built-in assessment challenges. And so that is reporting the score for that there. Also, there are the challenges by difficulty. So the more students that struggle with a specific challenge, the larger these circles become. When you click on these circles themselves, it pulls up the challenge so you can solve and work through it together. So another place to have more student data and to have that student deep dive of data to really drive your instruction. And then something that's brand new to us is this proficiency table. So it's kind of hidden here. You might quickly overlook it if you didn't know it was there, but here is the proficiency table that we just recently added. So we have 4 different levels here. We have a novice, we have a beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And this is progress within every single CodeMonkey course and the subjects that are covered there, the coding concepts. They're not subjects, but coding concepts. And Talia just put a really great article for you to read up to for later. But we can see the coding concepts that are covered here, and then we can see exactly how the students have done within each of the coding concepts throughout all of the courses. So this tells you how proficient they are within the concepts themselves. So that's just something that's new to us, brand new there. Okay, so now we have talked about the gradebook and the proficiency tab. And then just really quickly, I do want to mention the showroom, and then I'll talk about these lessons here. So in the showroom, this is when the students have created and built their own challenges. They will actually be able to, they'll populate here for you, so you'll be able to see them. So you have the access to the games and the challenges, and then there's some ways that you can share them publicly with, you know, parents for that extra deep dive, or for that extra buy-in for them to kind of play and interact with that as well. You can also disable the Discover here, and so that means that when you disable it, the students cannot share to the Discover, and so that's kind of just giving you a little bit more discretion if you would like as well. Okay, so now let's talk about one of my favorites, which is the Lessons tab. I will mention that the lessons right now are currently only available for the Coding Adventure course, just the lesson feature here. Obviously all the lesson plans are still available, but this specific one is only for the Coding Adventure course as of right now. So you select a specific Coding Adventure course. What happens is that this is broken up exactly how our lesson plans are. So all of our lesson plans are set up in the exact same manner. There is an intro, which is an unplugged activity. Then you have, or some kind of the introduction to the coding concept that the students are working on. Then you have playtime, so that's the chance where students are then working through the challenges themselves. You can assign specific challenges within the lesson itself here, which is really great. And then you have debrief. So usually it's a reflection, or sometimes you're doing a walkthrough, or sometimes even the playtime you might do a walkthrough. So all of those are going to be here for you as well. And then you can have access to those specific challenges that are there within the lesson. So you're not having to navigate throughout 9,000 screens. Everything is right here located for you. When you begin the lesson, what happens is the students get a big lock on their screen, and not just a lock on the courses, a big lock on their screen saying that they cannot progress until you've ended the lesson. So that creates the ability to kind of lock them down a little bit more and keep them with you while you work on the lesson itself. The specific lesson plan is located here for that specific lesson, and it's going to have everything on it, the objectives, overall, what are you going to be working on, the specific components. So those are like the coding concepts that you're going to be working on. What are you going to be working on, a variable and an assignment variable, and then the standards that are addressed, which I'll discuss this a little bit more, but we do have Common Core alignment, we also have CST alignment, and we do have specific state alignment. So if you're looking for that, we can talk about that also. And then that's just how the lesson plan is there. Playtime, intro, debrief, okay? All right, now let me go back here. Once I mark I can do two things. I can end the lesson, or I can mark it as complete. Once I mark it as complete, that means that the lesson has now ended. We also, for Coding Adventure, I'll show you where the reference cards are for the other ones, but we do have a reference card that just lets them know what each of the buttons mean. Just a reminder, it's a really good visual reminder for students. And then we also have a character review card. This character review card is really important when you're working through the challenge builder, because as the students progress through the courses, or through the through the course itself, the more characters and objects unlock. So this will let you know when those characters are going to be unlocked. Like in 55, I know I can now introduce a beaver. And then in 66, I can now work with the crocodile. So we do get a lot of questions sometimes surrounding that. So just, and some information for you to have as well. Okay, so now we've worked through all the features of the classroom page itself. So I noticed there's been some really good questions about, somebody asked, I just want to stop and ask this question because I think it's a very good question. Are grades available per class and individuals? They are available, they're actually per individual. It's not specific to the course itself. So we can see here that this student AB Monkey, we can see exactly how they scored. Obviously it's an overall grade book for the class, but they are individual grades. So we don't just pull like a whole class grade, like everyone got a B. But there is a usage report that you can actually pull. So I can show you, I'll show you that in just a quick moment. And then I'll just answer, there's one more question too, that I would like to answer too. So unplugged activities are available in the resources when you subscribe. That is correct. So basically, are they available for you? So as soon as you subscribe to a CodeMonkey subscription, all of those features are basically unlocked for you. So you have available to all of the lesson plans. So they're not like locked down for you at all. So those will just be available for you, and they're always in those lesson plans. So if you have questions finding those, we can kind of help you. Also on the blog, there's some really great articles about some unplugged activities that you can do, and we're gonna actually talk about that here in just a few moments. I'm just running quickly, I can notice out of time, so I just wanna make sure I'm honoring that. Amy had a really good question too. When you mark it complete, can a student not access that lesson any longer in case they didn't finish or miss a lesson? Actually, that is a really good question. When you are in lesson mode itself, basically what happens is that when you begin this lesson, the students can only have access to those challenges. So they are only working through the specific challenges. And as I hover over, you can see, it's probably quite small for you, but you can see that they are the specific challenges that are related to lessons. So they can only have access to that. So once you end it, then it opens back up to wherever they have progressed through. So then I would recommend making sure that you have that limit progress button on or something like that. So if they miss it, which happens, you know, kids are absent and they miss lessons and whatever, then that way they're still able to catch up and basically be on the same pace. But this also gives the ability for those students who are farther behind to be able to work through the same challenges that you're working through together during your lesson. So just some differentiation pieces there. Okay, so we talked about monitoring student progress. Now we're going to talk a little bit about self-paced lessons versus structured lessons. So basically when we're talking about self-paced, we're basically talking about, you know, the students are at home, they're not with you live. So what you can do is you can assign the specific courses, you can give students, you know, super hints, which we talked about. So basically what happens is Gordo has this light bulb here for like an extra, he has a light bulb here. And so when he has a super hint, you'll click on it. The Beaver Achiever course also does the same thing where they have a hint, you can see exactly the code. It's not the answer, but it gets them closer to the answer. Oops, excuse me. Then you can also review, if you're not there with the students, you know, because you're doing remote learning or maybe they're just not even with you, you can review the previous challenges. So I always recommend for students who are struggle busing it to go back to previous challenges and play those previous challenges. Sometimes you just need a refresher, and just going through it one time, you know, if I only learned how to ride my bike one time, I would never be very good. Sometimes you have to go back and practice just doing what it is. And coding is just not a natural concept, right? Like I don't come out of the womb knowing how to program. So the students don't either. So just encouraging them to go back to play those previous challenges and just making sure that they read the instructions. This is really important for our game builder courses, as well as our coding chatbot courses. They're pretty text heavy. So it's really important for them to read those instructions, or clicking on just reading instructions in general. You all are teachers, so you know exactly you know exactly how that goes, okay? And then if you also can provide them with the solution if they want, or really having them ask a friend. So I always recommend collaborating. Fostering that collaboration is going to be key, because you don't want teachers, you don't want students copy and pasting their answers to each other. And then sometimes you might have to provide them with a solution. I do think, I was just listening to a podcast from Marina Bears. If you don't know who she is, she was she works with Scratch and is the main person who developed Scratch Junior. And she was talking about, you know, what is the difference between having a teacher and having a student just code at home, and the missing component of all of it is you. You're the missing piece. And so they really need you to kind of help them work through the thinking. You know, sometimes it's just thinking out loud of different things. So those are just possibilities. So I encourage that communication to happen. We'll talk about what that communication can look like. And then the difference, and then a structured lesson. So a structured lesson is obviously working through the lessons within Coding Adventure, assigning them a course, making sure you monitor the progress, limit within the courses, you know, really using the lesson feature, or just at least limiting them. And then that way you guys, you can even limit them to 0, so they can't see it when you're doing the lesson if you're working in another course. And then when you're ready, then you give them back the ability to kind of progress through the challenges. So there's just a lot of flexibility to do that. And if you're not sure about it, you can always ask us, a member of the team, and we're happy to help walk you through that as well. But I personally like structured lessons, just me. I really don't like my students to progress through. I don't feel like they get as much of a depth of knowledge if they are not working together with us and having that communication. So just fostering that communication and collaboration is a really big piece, especially with coding. Okay, so we talked about that. So let's talk about some like next steps or some different things that you can do. So we recently just did a challenge builder competition. That page still lives at the bottom footer of the codemonkey.com page. You can see it there. But I recommend the students really creating and building their own challenges for mastery and one for creativity. It can get really boring just going through the concepts, although CodeMonkey is quite fun. It's not typical that somebody would say it's boring, but this is just a really good way to create extra engagement. The students can share out their challenges and play them with each other. And it's also a good way to do feedback loops. So having the students, you know, maybe they don't know exactly which student created that challenge, and you give them the challenge and they complete it. And maybe they give some code commenting or some different ways to kind of work through the thinking, you know, the computational thinking model, or even the engineering design process are really good strategies to use when building and creating your own challenges. You can also connect it to other disciplines. So this is one of the challenges that we got from the challenge builder competition that we recently did. And this was not something that we told the students to do. We just had a few rules for them to kind of complete. So if you want those guidelines, those are there. But he basically tells a story. Oh, of course. Okay, well, I'll pull that up here in just a moment. But basically he tells a story. So he actually interacts here with these characters. So there is a say function within the Coding Adventure course. And so he turns to this goat, and I'll pull this up in just a couple minutes. I don't know why it's not pulling up right now, but so he turns to the monkey, and the monkey turns to the goat, and he talks to them about moving, and then the beaver has to move so he can get across. Basically, when you progress through these challenges, the bear and the tiger are both hungry for both the monkey and the goat, so they want to eat him. So there's some different functions and things that progress through there. So there's a lot of different ways to use storytelling, even a math concept, like what's 2 + 2, and then they go through and they move him if he gets the correct answer, you know, just doing some if statements and working in some different interdisciplinary, you know, content areas that are really important for that. And then the lesson plans. There are some really great activities from the lesson plans themselves, which I'm going to come back to this page here. But I personally really love to use the CodeMonkey Junior lesson plans. I know this is for the younger kids, but it's really about that computational thinking, which is really what you want to have happen. I personally just am a big fan of these lesson plans and the unplugged activities that they have here. So inside of this, so on this second lesson plan that's in here, it has instructional cards that you basically print out. So what I used to do was I would, you know, have the students create cards, or you can have them do like a Google slide, and you kind of have like a grid and have the students basically program an object, or, you know, you can have the students do this offline where they come up with their own activity, they can record it and send it to you. There's lots of different variations that you can do with these unplugged activities, which we'll talk more in the in the tour de courses. We can talk a little bit more about that as well. But these lesson plans are really, really great for working with students. And I really like to use them as an opener to my coding courses. I just am obsessed with using them because I think it gets kids moving. And even if you're doing remote learning, you can do unplugged activities without being directly in front of the CodeMonkey platform together. So you can utilize these resources. So I'd recommend just using those. They're one of my favorite things to do. And then the next thing is just kind of communicating with your students, creating those open feedback loops. The biggest part about being a computer programmer is that there's a lot of failure that's involved with computer programming. If you talk to anyone in computer programming who's been on a sprint, meaning they've worked multiple hours and days on a project, a lot of times a syntax error will happen, or they need to, you know, collaborate. But just creating those feedback loops, we don't have that specifically built into the platform, but I have seen some teachers do some really great things in Google Classroom or Canva or whatever it is that you're kind of using with the students to kind of communicate about that and have them communicate their thinking, because the deeper that they can go within their thinking, you know, being able to teach something creates a greater mastery of a concept. Something that we did want to mention just for some different things as far as tips for communication. I took this from a Teach with Technology Facebook group. Also TCEA had some of these images as well, but there's some Google Meet expectations for when students come in. Google just did some really good updates also to the Google Meet. If you're not sure, they just had a conference yesterday. So I would recommend checking that out. We also have some Zoom expectations here too, just making sure that, you know, you're chatting responsibly, that kind of thing. I also recommend recording and then disabling the chat while you're working through. We've done some live lessons during COVID with students, and we really had to make sure everything was pretty locked down. And just making sure that they know to be in a quiet place, and just some things, you know, it's a little bit different. They have a little bit more exposure now as we're going through, but just making sure we have that ability as well. So now we've talked about the teacher's homepage, the classroom and the student access, how to monitor students' progress, the difference between a self-paced lesson and a structured lesson, next steps, and now we're gonna give some time for Q&A. I see a lot of questions here that I didn't have the ability to answer. And then I'm also gonna answer some of your questions. I know how our time is working here, so. I'll just go ahead and talk about that. And then I will also answer these questions here on the side and any questions that you have in the chat box itself, okay? One of the questions that had been asked beforehand was how much coding knowledge is needed by a teacher. So to begin CodeMonkey and any of the courses within CodeMonkey, you don't need to have a ton of coding knowledge, but I would recommend taking that Teaching with Coding Adventure course. It's going to walk you through concepts like what is a function? What is a for loop? What does a for loop mean? What exactly is a times loop, and what exactly does a times loop mean? It is me, so working through that, so you'll get to hear my voice again. I'm sure you're pretty excited about that, but it'll be me working through the concepts with you, talking about each one of those as well. Another question was, how do you tie coding with robotics? Well, in robotics themselves, even with the blocks that are used with most robotics that there are, there's a lot of computational thinking, that's in there. So I would say definitely working through the computational thinking model. It's always a way of problem solving. But also there's a lot of concepts in the first part of Coding Venture, or whatever course you kind of choose, that will actually tie to robotics, like a times loop or a for loop, or just talking about a function, like how do we make the robot move? So there's a lot of components that when they take the actual hard coding itself, then they're better able to program the robotics, because now they have a really strong background knowledge of information to kind of deliver. How do I know which standards CodeMonkey is aligned to? So I did mention that I was going to talk about how you can figure out where those are. So if you go to the bottom of codemonkey.com, you'll see there is a standards page here. If you want more deeper dive into the concepts or the standards that are covered, just ask whoever, basically your sales rep that you're working with, or Talia. She's very great with helping with that. But you can see the specific concepts that are covered here. We do have specific reports for just like CSTA or whatever, but they are in the lesson plan as well for you. Okay. All right. Next question is, distance learning strategies. So just some strategies that I recommend are having the students work offline with some of the coding concepts that they're working on. They're working on functions. Why can't they go outside? Most of them have cell phones, so their parents have a cell phone, and have them record and have them do their own unplugged activity of that concept. Another strategy is having them, you know, work with those game builder or challenge builder, some different ways to kind of show the mastery of learning in a new way. And I also really recommend working with like writing prompts, like having the students write out exactly what it is that you're going to do. Okay, so those are some of the questions from today. And then I just had this question here. What was the name of the beginner teacher course webinar and how to access that? So under the teacher resources, you'll see the Teaching with CodeMonkey tab. That's from the main screen, just on the left-hand side, you click on teacher resources. Here, it's the Teaching with Coding Adventure course. And there you'll see the course overview, and then you'll go all the way to for loops, array and indexes, say and distance to, variables, which is a really important concept to kind of go over. So I personally recommend taking that. I found that a lot of teachers that have done it and that I've recommended them taking it have a much stronger foundation. There's also a teacher that I've been working with directly, and she actually learned how to program from working with CodeMonkey. So just a lot of capabilities as far as that goes. Okay, how many hours per week do you recommend using CodeMonkey? I think it depends on what it is that you're doing. Is CodeMonkey your sole program? Are you integrating it with other subject areas? And that. So I would recommend, typically we say that one lesson in Coding Adventure covers 5 challenges, and that is typically 45 minutes. So I personally would recommend that you do, so basically how the Coding Adventure lesson plans are broken up is there's two lessons for almost every concept that's covered. I would say taking a blend of that lesson and then having them work through at least 10 of the challenges and 10 of the skill mode challenges. If I were doing Coding Adventure, that's what I would do. But if you're integrating it with math, I would have them write out the specific, because in Coding Adventure, there is a ruler measurement and angle measurement. So I would integrate that. And then I also would have them do, you know, like a writing prompt surrounding that. So just some different capabilities. So if you're interested, you can always reach out to us. We do have a CodeMonkey Facebook group that you can jump into and really ask those questions. We really encourage that. Soon our teacher ambassadors will be running that a little bit more. So that will kind of happen as we go. All right, when you mark complete, can a student not access the lesson any longer? So I answered that question. I mentioned Marina Bears. Somebody said, I just purchased Kibo kits for our school. Do you believe CodeMonkey would complement working with Kibo? I do think the CodeMonkey Junior and Beaver Achiever course would really complement what they're doing. I know that that's really unplugged type of thing that she's doing there, but I do think that those would support what it is that you're doing. And we can always talk about that in a little bit more complexity if you would like to, just in the honor of y'all's time today. All right. Talia, Molly, do you guys have any questions that I didn't get to?
No, we have some individuals that we're going to follow up with directly after the webinar. I think we have a couple more in the queue that we are still answering, but you've covered the rest excellently.
All right, great. Whew, just finished just on time. But if you guys have any follow-up questions kind of as we you know, go through, I apologize I wasn't able to show you that example of the students, but it's really great. So if you want me to show it to you, I will. You can follow up with me via email, and I'm happy to do that. Just remember that next week, I've mentioned this several times throughout today's webinar, that we do have a tour de courses coming up next Wednesday, or the 18th, so excuse me, next Tuesday. So that will be there for you. So I will be going through all of the courses and really touring them, looking into the courses themselves and talking just a little bit deeper about that side of things. Today, we just wanted to give you the back end of all of the details as well. So if you have any questions regarding help, so you are stuck on something, you're not sure where to go, you can contact us at support@codemonkey.com. If you, anything that you're kind of struggling with, and we'll make sure we get that routed to the correct person to answer your question. You can also always go to help.codemonkey.com. Use that help center. I promise there's some really amazing resources there that would really help guide you. And if you can't get the answers that you're looking for, reach back out to us at the support@codemonkey.com. Remember, you can always follow us at Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at CodeMonkeySTU. And we just want to thank you so much for everything that you have done and everything you continue to do with teachers. We know that this is, I can't even remember a time where I didn't say this, such an unprecedented time that we've all went through together. And I know that everyone is just doing the best that they can. So we want to support you the best that we can, because we are firm believers that you make the difference. So as always, remember to write code, catch bananas, and save the world. And we'll see you guys next time. Bye.